Form of annoying older brother.
Shape of annoying younger brother.
Puga powers activate. Our topic for today is a pretty interesting one because I kind of had a moment earlier this week where I was like, if you think about it, the way that folklore is presented in like Japanese popular culture is handled extremely differently than the way that European folklore is presented in Western culture. I mean, you have stories in Japanese pop culture about, these horrifying monsters, these evil ghosts, these, the spirits of dead animals that rise as supernatural beings that can control corpses and, summon lightning. And yet you have to really go into the weeds in order to understand what, for instance, what a fairy tale is. And no, it's not a 6 billion volume manga by Hiro Mashima. I mean, it technically is, but that's
Different
not
tale.
what I'm referring to. Yes. And also, as an aside, to that aside, can I just say I don't appreciate, as a Celt myself, I don't appreciate that certain communities have appropriated fairy. It's like, I'm sorry, do what you will, but you are not one of the nobles of the other world. You are not a Sele or an Unsele. You are not, one of the hunters of the wild hunt. You are just, someone who lives in San Francisco. And, I'm sorry, I suppose you could consider that another world, but, I've met a few Californians, and they're not going to be like, oh, look, you've stepped on a crack on a Tuesday. Oh, your hair follicles are going to turn into snakes. So, yes.
What? Clockwork lied to me!
Whoa.
Did
Noodle?
Clockwork curse you?
Yeah, why do you think I'm bald, man?
Oh, no.
Well, you're always wearing that little helmet on your head, so I never really noticed.
Oh, I'm sorry. You don't know. This is deepest noodle lore. He actually is bald like a monk. It's very particular baldness.
Curse you, Clockwork. I shall have my revenge. Californian.
So, yeah, basically that was my entire thing. Is like, what's up with Western folklore, Western fantasy? And I have some ideas. Like, for instance, I want to say that I don't think that Hesiod and the Prose Edda have done any favors to this. But I want to hear what you guys say, because I've basically been just kind of ranting at you before I go into that, because that'll be another one.
Get it out of your system, my dude.
Okay, so all right. Well, my main problem is Hesiod really has kind of ruined what people think of with mythology, because even though the dude really was I think he clearly had noble intentions, because the entire reason why basically we have such a firm understanding of Greek mythology is because of Hesiod and his theogony. What is this? It's basically Hesiod, who was a contemporary of Homer, not the Simpson, the other Homer, the actually good Homer. Fight me. I'm sorry, the Simpsons were never good. Once again, fight me. That aside, he basically was trying to compile a comprehensive relationship and understanding of all the gods of Greece. And in so doing, he effectively, quote unquote, cemented what was considered like, canon in Hellenic mythology. Whereas you look at, for instance, Mesopotamian mythology, things are not nearly as hard and fast. Who is Inanna's dad, for instance? Well, it's Enlil, it's Ea, it's Sin, the god of the moon, or it's Anu. And I mean, technically speaking, I'd argue that that makes more sense considering that, she is always counted as one of the Anuna, or the sons of Anu. But, I mean, there are traditions, and I've seen legends that have all the other ones. I mean, it's just one of those things. So basically, we kind of have this problem, I'd argue, whereas the Japanese never had anything like that. There were folklorists, definitely. And actually, the comic book artist who was a contemporary of Osamu Tezuka, who did Gegege no Kitaro, actually was a huge influence on why we know as much as we do, because he basically went out into the mountains and interviewed people and compiled huge amounts of these stories. And that's where Gegege no Kitaro came from, is it literally was him, trying to put these ghost and yokai stories out there. Whereas, in the Western tradition, well, we have these compilations. We've had them for thousands of years. I mean, Hesiod was around in the 8th century, BC, so drug. So, I mean, that's one thing I'd argue. And also, I really hate it in mythology. As a mythologian, I really hate it when I watch YouTube and they're like, well, this is the way that things were. And I'm like, guys, I don't know how to tell you this, but myth is not like D&D where they're like, yes, this is the way that it is. And it's like, it depends on the tradition, really. It depends on the tradition. It depends on the story. And I think this is kind of also the problem why you look at 2nd edition Exalted versus 3rd edition. And I feel like the lore of 3rd edition is kind of diminished because of that. Is they're approaching things in a very, this is the way that things are. And they try to be more vague, but they fail. But, that's another... Now, we could go into an entirely other rant about that. I mean, I did go to school for many, many moons, and I'm still owing, I owe somebody, I don't know exactly who, a lot of money because I went to school. So, and I still get, things from these universities. They're like, yeah, so you're going to give us more money, right? I'm like, no. But you went to school. And it's like, yeah, I did. And I still owe you money. I'm not going to give you more money when I'm not going to school.
We had a financial transaction. I gave you money. You gave me an education. You have stopped giving me an education, so I'm going to stop giving you money.
Yes, and then I have little freshmen, and they're like, please, sir, can you give us money? I'm like, oh. I really no.
It doesn't help that little baby sister Pugum is going to the same school that Ditaku went to.
Well, see, okay, if Mumsy Pugum and Father Pugum want to give them money for that, which I believe they have, that's on them. But, I'm not going to give them money after the amount of money, which was not a small amount of money.
But going off on a tangent
You know-
about college prices and education.
That's what they come here for our weird crossword, tangents. Anyways, back to the original thing. What is it about Western folklore, Western stories? Why are they so neutered?
Well, the theory that I proposed is that the story of the brave knight slaying the dragon is essentially ubiquitous. Like, everyone has heard some variation of it or seen some cartoon or some movie that basically played with the same idea. Now, other similar hero archetypes, if I may, like the cowboy and the ninja and the samurai, well, many of those, like the gunman, for instance, is historically much closer to the modern day. So there's room for that whole historical snobbery, the guy with the Coke bottle glasses and the gigantic book he carries and never reads going, actually, some of them were the bad guys. Like, we didn't know that there was always good and evil people throughout human history. Like, wow, what a shock, what a compelling and amazing argument. I never get tired of seeing this on Twitter! Sorry, I don't know where that came from. Anyway, the cowboy is very contemporary, so he has not had time to become romanticized over the years. The ninja is basically a work of fiction. The quote-unquote ninja that existed in their day and age looked nothing, acted nothing, and operated nothing like their modern pop culture counterparts. And
For those who don't know, the reason that ninja are dressed up all they are is because that's how kabuki theater stagehands are dressed. And so during kabuki theater, you're supposed to ignore the people who dress like that. And so a ninja was basically blending into the environment. And so it was a shock when the stagehand just jumped out and killed the, person in the play. That's why they're
Yeah,
just
it literally, it's supposed to be like a fourth wall break in that it's like the ninja just came out of nowhere and just assassinate. It would be like, you are reading a book and then suddenly you get attacked by the cover. It's absolutely unthinkable, but it's entirely a fabrication of Tokugawa shogunate era kabuki.
yeah, so you have one that just hasn't had the time to become romanticized. You have the one that doesn't have the historical backing to become romanticized. And in many instances, the ubiquitousness of the knight, of the European folktale, especially in the English-speaking world, diminishes its value, at least in the eyes of the listener. Because they're like, oh, well, I know everything there is to know about European folklore because I once had a civics class in middle school. And that's how they treat it. They treat it like, because it's a part of a well-known body of works, that it doesn't hold anything special. It's basically exoticism, is what it boils down to. Like, they're like, oh my god, these Chinese and Japanese animus, man, they're so exotic and different and foreign and weird because them Asian people sure are wacky. And it's exoticism. That's what it boils down to.
Yeah, that's going to get clipped and used out of context.
Yeah, no, there's no doubt about that. A lot of what I'm saying today is probably going to get clipped. Like, I don't know, I didn't expect to get so heated about it, but it does irk me, and in no small part because I really, really love westerns. If I haven't made that clear.
Gosh, them Asians sure are wacky. Professor Snek 2024.
Damn it!
I didn't know we were popular enough to get.
Give it time. Give it time.
I suspect there might be something to that though, but it still kind of frustrates me because I look at for instance, this is kind of the example I showed to the Snek prior to us talking about it here. was I'm like, you look at like Journey to the West, and it's a story about a long story about heroes overcoming trials and using their wits in order to succeed. And then you look at Roland the Furious, where you have a series of heroes who have to overcome an evil wizard's magic, restore a knight's body to him, then utilize that knight's charisma in order to seduce the evil wizard's daughter, in order to steal his magic, steal his magical horse bird, and then proceed to return to the battle so that then they can, stop against the ancient Saracen ogres who all worship Jupiter. Because that's what Saracens do. They worship Greek deities.
Of course.
I get the sense that the Italians did not have a good understanding of Saracen culture.
Probably not.
And yet, now that when you hear about the 12 peers, it's, oh, I know them. It's like funny little dude who looks like a girl, but he's a dude. That's like funny. And it's like, that is not Astolfo. Astolfo is a total Chad, a total G. He's not just like funny cross-dresser, okay?
And he only did that like once or twice, as I understand it.
He did it once, and it literally was my cousin, my best friend, is going mad because of a literal love spell that was placed on him by a witch who was like, I'm going to take this pure and, noble man of God who I am totally have the hots for, and I'm going to ensorcel him so that he will become my husbando. And Astolfo was like, guys, it's all right. I, the incredibly handsome and incredibly, attractive man, will take care of this. Hey, cuz, check it out. Look at how hot I am. And it didn't work. It literally did not work. It floored everyone else. But he's like, I'm sorry, I'm too insane. It's just not register.
Yeah, it was literally a zany scheme that Astolfo came up with. Was like, this is going to be so wacky and weird that it'll literally snap him out of the spell, that he'll dress up in women's clothing, and that'll just like completely shock and floor him, and that'll break him out. It was literally supposed to be something weird and wacky and out there that would literally shock him out of an enchantment.
You have to understand. The first we ever see of Astolfo in the Roland Orlando the Furious it literally is the newly baptized knight, Ruggiero, goes to a magic island and hitches his horse to this Marlboro tree, or mulberry tree. Not Marlboro. That'd be very different. And then the tree starts complaining to him about the fact that his knot is too tight. He realizes that the tree is actually a person, and that the tree is actually a former peer of Charlemagne, Astolfo. Turns out Astolfo had been tricked there by the wizard's daughter. And because, Astolfo is such a good-natured goober / ladies man, he's like, yeah, that's all right. I'll, bring her over to the Christian side. And it didn't work. But, that's just because Astolfo is a good-natured goober and he didn't see her betrayal. So, the entire thing of like, oh, Astolfo can be my husbando waifu. It's like, no, you don't understand. Astolfo would not care because he is a total G who he's a ladies' man. He's a ladies' man. He's I don't know.
But guys, the wacky Asian people wouldn't lie to me in my mobile games.
I love Fate, but I don't know. I hate how it's twisted a lot of, it's twisted a lot of things, and I don't really like how it's done that.
Did I ever mention that Fate is kind of dumb?
Yeah.
Oh, it is extremely dumb. But I still like it, but it is extremely dumb.
Oh no, I'm in exactly the same boat.
I disagree with you, though, Professor, about the cowboy, not being, or being too new to not be a legend, in and of its... I'd argue that it basically is like probably the closest we Americans have to a legend is, the quintessential frontiersman cowboy who's like, I am by myself because I'm an individual with my gun. I take care of things because I'm an individual with my gun.
Can you tell the Tomo Bros really like Clint Eastwood movies? I mean, there's definitely something to it. The Legend of the Frontiersman does hold a certain appeal, but unlike a lot of other, especially foreign culture myths and legends, you get that literary snobbery from the quote unquote media literacy wing of Tudor, and they're just like, "Hey, but did you know some of them were bad?" It's like, yeah, that welcome to human civilization since its inception.
I find it fascinating, actually, if you look at the way that a lot of these popular and notable frontiersmen are. For instance, Wyatt Earp actually several times was considered an outlaw, even though he was considered one of the quote-unquote good guys at the shootout at the OK Corral.
Yep.
I mean, a few of those quote-unquote good guys with him got killed as outlaws. And I mean, Earp himself actually got in a few shootouts with lawmen.
A lot of
That's just been...
shootouts. This dude, like, historically, Wyatt Earp was in so many shootouts that he completely skews the average number of shootouts that you are expected to survive, which, by the way, is 1. The dude has, like, divine luck or something going on his side, because he was just constantly under a hail of gunfire and was just like, "No, guys, I'm cool. No, I'm good. They didn't hit you? Yeah, no, not a scratch. I'm fine."
Well, to be perfectly honest, you also have to understand that the original 1848 Colt revolver, I mean, it was a miracle of engineering, but also it was not the most accurate machine.
Yeah, it dropped accuracy very rapidly over distance. So, yeah. It's more the fact that you didn't have to reload it after every single shot.
Most shootouts basically were boiled down to you snuck up on someone and then you unloaded and then you ran away.
Yeah.
And actually, speaking of the OK Corral shootout, I mean, the entire reason why it ended was basically because it was just no one could see anything because of the smoke.
Yep, and it lasted less than a minute.
Mm-hmm.
It was actually very fast. By the way, Tombstone is a fantastic Western, and I strongly recommend everyone at home go watch it.
Honestly, I have another confession to make, Professor.
Do tell.
I constantly get Deadwood and Tombstone mixed up. I know they're two different shows, but I'm like, yeah, there's the one about, the reservation town that has, the gold boom in the Black Hills. I'm like, is that Tombstone or is that Deadwood?
That's
like,
Deadwood.
Yeah, so...
Tombstone was the shootout at the OK Corral. And everything around it.
Yeah, like I said, it's just one of those things.
Funny enough, we once were looking into doing the Fate tabletop game, and I proposed that I would use Wyatt Earp as my servant, and we started joking, it's like, yeah, but this is Fate, so it has to be incredibly stupid. So I'm like, okay, it turns out Wyatt Earp was like a voluptuous red-headed woman who just hid her female form via magic and yada yada, and her gun is like super enchanted and has magic bullets, and it was like, yeah, I think I can make a fake character. Just give me like half an hour and some crayons. I can do this.
I mean, never mind the fact that I want to say the writer of your group was George Washington, who was also a girl.
Yeah, George Washington was also a girl, and we also joked that all the founding fathers were girls, and that Thomas Jefferson was a caster who did not believe in magic.
Yeah, so the entire thing is that the caster Monticello basically was like super powerful because like no magecraft could work against him.
Yep.
Or her, rather.
Yeah, her, but yeah.
And so our tangent about Western myths turns into a angry tangent about fate.
Welcome to the Tomodachi Bros
Okay.
podcast.
Likely to do.
I mean, I want to argue, but I think if people have been following Season 3 all along, they'll know how rapidly things devolve into such things here.
That's true. And I would
Well-
say that is quite a bit to deal with a lot of those. I don't know if it's necessarily a cause, but it is certainly a symptom of that sort of weird philanderization of a lot of Western mythological cycles.
Yeah, and you see it a lot. Okay, this is my bugbear. Okay, this is the thing that irks me to no end. Like every single gacha waifu mobile game that I have ever bothered to try, for some reason, has a really fetishy version of Joan of Arc in it. They all do. And I think Fate started this trend, and I really wish they would stop. She was a teenager. For the love of God, stop.
I want to say it's because there was actually like a French biopic about Joan of Arc that was really popular in Japan in the 70s.
Yeah, there's a thing called Tokyo Paris syndrome or something like that, where like Japanese people become really, really inexplicably obsessed with French culture.
And the French are really inexplicably obsessed with Japanese culture, which is the reason why Fist of the North Star and Saint Seiya are like really popular in France. Not that I can blame them. Both of those shows are
Those are
really,
good
really
shows, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it both boils down to, we are both incredibly attractive dudes. What are we going to do? Let's fight.
Yeah, okay.
Okay. But yeah, so that's what I'd argue. Other than that, I'm like, I really don't know.
I have some theories.
All right.
Things that we have not quite touched upon.
Fire away.
Well,
Go ahead.
I kind of blame, in some regards, if we want to talk about very specific things with fairy tales getting sanitized and everything, and I kind of blame Disney for some of that, with a lot of that, with how you look at the original fairy tales of a lot of things that like the Disney animated pictures and all that are based off of.
Oh my,
and
yes.
You look at those actual things, and you look at the the cartoons, and it's like, oh my god, those are super sanitized. Like, I mean, yeah, like Hercules and I know so many people who thought that Hercules, that like Zeus was such a great father and Hercules was his only kid. And I'm just like, oh my god, you cannot be worse truth. And that Hades is some sort of evil, demonic person. And it's like, no, if anything, Hades is like the most chill of all the Greek gods, people.
He
like
took on a lot of responsibility, specifically so his brothers didn't have to. Like, Hades gets such a bad reputation.
I'll say this, though. James Wood as Hades is probably one of the most inspired voice choices, though.
I agree. That is true.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not going to say that it's bad. I'm not going to say that it was a bad movie. I quite enjoyed it. It was one of, if not the first movie that, young Babu Noodle went to in theaters. Yeah, so I'm not going to say that it was a bad movie, but that's just like an example of...
Yeah, or how about like how in Cinderella, the wicked stepsisters were like literally chopping off their toes and chunks out of their heel to try to force their feet to fit the glass slipper. Like, the fairy tales were hardcore, and they didn't care. They had a moral to teach, and they were going to bludgeon you with that premise and be like, you know what happens to bad people? They're forced to wear iron shoes that are heated up to red-hot temperatures and forced to dance until they die.
And, yeah, so I wouldn't blame Disney necessarily for causing that, but I would certainly blame Disney for perpetuating and ending up in that cycle. I honestly think a lot of it has to do with just kind of the direction that Western civilization has gone in that, you know, as you say there, Professor, those fairy tales, they were designed to teach a lesson.
Yep.
And a lot of those lessons were very brutal and were very harsh. And it was teaching children that the world is very brutal and the world is very harsh. And these are things, and if you learn these lessons, then you just might survive and perhaps even thrive in this very brutal and very hard world.
If you run into something in the forest and it offers you free baked goods, the answer is no.
Because it's a trap. Let's be honest, that Hansel and Gretel thing, that's a thing we still teach our kids. Don't take candy from strangers. The setting's a little different, but it instead of it being a gingerbread forest and a little gingerbread house and everything, it's don't go into the stranger's van. It's the same thing, but yeah, we have sanitized so much of these things, and I think a big part of it is the fact that our society, the world that we live in, despite how terrible so many things have seemed to so many people, we live in perhaps the most prosperous and egalitarian time that has existed to this point in human history. Infant mortality as a level is the lowest that it's ever been now. All of these things. And so because of that, and then it's been going in that direction for generations, people have forgotten how hard the world is. In my opinion, this is the thing. This is Noodle's premise. People have forgotten how hard the world is. I have met so many people who think that people at their baseline are nice and kind, and humanity at its core, if left to their own devices, they're all good and selfless. And yes, there are good and selfless people out there, but humans are not good. Humans are not nice at our nature.
No. No, they are not. Thus spake the snake and the pugum.
I would like to point people to a soliloquy by a character in best Star Trek, Deep Space Nine, from Quark, where he pointed out to his young nephew, Nog, when Nog's just talking about, all these people, they've just been through a lot. And Nog and Quark's all, humans are very nice and kind and loving people when their bellies are full and they have their creature comforts. But you take all those things away from them and they will be the most brutal and destructive beings that you will ever see. That is 100% true.
Yep.
Young Babby Noodle saw this at a very young age when he lived through some very, very, very hard race riots. And he had to ask, Mama Pugum, what are those things that people are saying? They're saying death to... What are those people saying? What does that word mean? And Mama Pugum had to sit down, little baby Noodle Pugum, and go, that's a derogatory term for Pugums. Those people are pretty much saying death to Pugums. Young Babby Noodle was 8 years old at that time. That's much closer to the default state of people than anything that a lot of people have seen these days. And so I think that is a lot of it. Culturally, we don't want to tell children, we don't want to tell people and acknowledge that life is hard, life is harsh. Your continued life is purchased at the death of something else. Be that an animal, be that a plant, something else. Your every day, your life continues to be purchased with death. That is the hard reality of entropy.
But that's actually beautiful in a way. Like consider where we started with this: the knight and the dragon. Is that not the ultimate summary of life and the existence of people? Why these legends took the shape that they ultimately took? The people encounter a hardship, and then they did something. They took an action. They made a plan. They formed a team. They did something. They didn't sit around and just let themselves die out. Instead, they did become the knight who slayed the dragon. They may have been figurative dragons. They probably weren't 300-ton green, scaly, fire-breathing monstrosities, but probably. I mean, what do I know? But
what do you know? Those dragons were probably your great uncles or something.
Maybe Hipster Dragon, probably not me so much, but. The whole thing is these myths and legends took the shape that they did because they were a reflection of very important things. A lot of these fairy tales are complex lessons boiled down to a form that a small child can understand. The dragon is bad because it kills and eats people and taxes them. And so the knight is the good guy who steals the stolen money back for the people who had it stolen in the first place. Robin Hood, confirmed libertarian.
And it also teaches that we need brave people to stand up and be the knight, to resist their own temptations, to put themselves on the line for the good of others, and to fight the good fight. And perhaps, little kid who is listening to this story, you should aspire to be that sort of person who can put themselves on the line for the sake of others.
Something chimpanzee full of snakes, something.
If there are a lot of things that Noodle can say about chivalry, but if, dear listener, watcher, if you have not read or listened to a recording of C.S. Lewis's On the Necessity of Chivalry, please do so. It will summarize anything and everything I have to say on that far better and far more eloquently than I ever could. But yes, my personal hypothesis is that, these things are sanitized because so many people these days don't want to acknowledge the hard reality that life is hard, life is harsh, life is terrible, and they don't want to tell that to children. And so we have to sanitize those things out of the stories that we tell children. Yeah, that's Noodle's hypothesis on that front. I would say that other cultures, like things from, Japanese culture, they've got their own things, and so their outside stuff, they don't have the baggage. So people here don't see the need to sanitize them, and they've got their own stuff going on. Their culture is going in different directions, and so they don't feel the need to sanitize it themselves.
There is something to be said for that, and I also I've been recently doing research on different myths from mostly from North America, and the monsters and legends and the things that people were afraid of hundreds and hundreds of years ago. And you want to know, the three things I encountered the most? One was monsters who live in bodies of water, rivers, lakes, streams, the ocean. 2, giants who just murder people and enact cannibalism. And 3, floating disembodied heads flying around with little bat wings.
Yeah, it's weird that that's a thing.
It kept coming up. There are dozens upon dozens of variations on these 3 specific things. But, stop to consider what those legends are meant to teach you about. 1, water is super dangerous and is full of stuff that will kill you. 2, giants are scary and cannibalism is bad, which, important lessons, yes. And apparently... Okay, I don't know what to do with the...
Well, there's always bigger, tougher, and more dangerous people out there, and those people will kill you and possibly eat you.
Yeah. And then, like, I think the disembodied heads thing is more just a general, if you see something weird in the forest and you don't know what it is, just assume that it's dangerous and run from it.
Unless you're in a group, and then team up and kill it.
And then make fashionable weapons and armors out of its hide and scales and teeth. Yeah, I'll be honest, I don't know what to do with the giant floating disembodied heads with bat wings. That one was kind of a head scratcher, especially because it kept coming up.
If I had a nickel
The
for
head.
every time that happened, I'd have 2 whole nickels, which isn't a lot of money, but it's really weird that it happened more than once.
It happened a lot. I would have a lot of nickels. Like, it kept coming up, and I'm just like, but why? Like, what were they seeing that gave them this idea? Or was it just something that was like, guys, you know what would be super freaky? If someone's head just, like, left their body, grew bat wings, and just started, like, terrorizing people. And they were just like, yeah, man, that's scary. I would hate that. Yeah, that is the thing. Like, the myths and legends around the culture shape around the values of those cultures. And, like, I remember one, we were talking about Cheap Trick in JoJo Part 4. And Ditaku was like, oh yeah, this is actually kind of a reference to a Japanese fairy tale about a man who's, like, carrying this monster on its back that, like, gradually just keeps getting bigger and bigger and bigger until the old man is crushed beneath its weight. And he's like, oh yeah, by the way, it's like a metaphor for, like, having kids. And I'm like, damn. Okay. Harsh.
Yeah, it's a certain yokai. There's speaking of which, there's a lot of yokai which are basically like, oh, you go into the woods, and then there's like an old person or like a baby or something, and then it turns out, surprise, I'm not actually a baby or an old person. I'm a yokai, and I'm going to eat you. And it's like, yeah, I guess it boils down to, don't trust strangers. Really.
Stranger danger, like lots and lots and lots of stranger danger. Like, speaking of myths that, like, probably started off as some goofy thing that parents would tell their kids and kind of took on a life of their own. The umbrella demon, which is like, it's if a kid forgot their umbrella at school, there'd be a chance that this yokai would possess their umbrella, and the umbrella would, like, start chasing them around the town in revenge for them forgetting their umbrella.
Oh yeah, the little god of the item would basically get upset and start to haunt you.
And I'm like, that is such a goofy thing that you would tell a little kid, and it's like one of those things that definitely kind of took on a life of its own.
Well, if you want to hear another thing like that,
Sure.
I have heard some pretty interesting theories that banshees from Celtic folklore, ladies screaming in the dark of night, and, oh, this happens, you don't go out there and do that. That originated as a myth that parents told their kids so that if the kids heard their parents having loud, crazy, wild, they wouldn't go out and disturb them.
That is hilarious to me. I'm sorry. That's genuinely funny. And as a result, we got Sean Connery singing in a movie. Darby O'Gill and the Little People. It's good. Go watch it. You know, another one you just reminded me of is another Japanese demon, the Filth Licker. And it's a big, ugly, reptilian monster that will live in your bathroom, licking every single, like, spot in the bathroom if you don't clean your bathroom regularly. That's literally all it is. That's the monster.
So clean your bathroom regularly, kids. Otherwise, a demon will come and possess it.
Yep.
That actually was, there was a certain thing about that, because that demon, that yokai, is actually a demon in, in Megaten.
Right.
And the funny thing is like, even the other demon hunters that are in Megaten kind of bring up, it's like, this guy's a little bit weird, because he's like, toilet grime, delicious, and they're like, ew, we don't want to touch you.
Yep, if you don't clean your bathroom regularly, a demon possesses it.
Technically speaking, he's a god, But I mean, he's not a benevolent god. He is a god of poverty. See, the funny thing is the distinction between god, ghost, and what we would consider a demon or a yokai um, are it's not like a cosmic sense differentiation. It's basically like more of a job title. It's you're the same being, it's just whether or not you actually have the job title of being a god or a ghost or a yokai, whatever.
And, sometimes you get to do cool stuff like call down thunderstorms, and sometimes you lick toilets. Life is not fair indeed.
I want to make a joke about how weird, uh, like, you hear about like weird things on the internet about like, oh, did you know about that guy who got killed because he licked, like light bulbs? But and then you hear about like the people like that from Japan or China, and they're like, yes, they decided to like lick a tiger and they got killed, and I'm like, but what compels you to lick a tiger though?
What made you think this was a good plan? Did you not have any sense of foresight at all?
But anyways, so like, but the thing with that though is the fact that like when you pass on, their understanding is that you would become a spirit, which could become a ghost or a god. And so maybe, creepy filth licker guy was like, yes, I was the toilet licker in life, but now I am, paid to be the toilet licker. This is great.
You know what they say. If you get a job doing something you love, you'll never work a day in your life.
Filth licker. You filth licker, that makes it even worse. You become even worse.
Like, I feel like, I don't know if I feel sympathy or just revulsion from this creature now. I'm just like, oh God. I should not have had so many fajitas at dinner.
Okay, I have an even worse thing now.
Oh no.
And even, all right, I don't, okay, so, anyways. The thing is, though, Zune has yet to make a Toho of the filth licker.
That is technically true, I suppose. I just need that one comic reaction image of, I guess.
He's done the History Eater. He's done the History Eater. He has done the Hundun, the literal the dumpling of chaos, as it's called. And yet, he won't do, oh boy, I get to lick toilets.
And we know what kind of fan art that would generate. You know
Yes.
The evil you would unleash on the internet were you to do this?
I'm just saying, the ability to purify things via devouring corruption would be an insanely overpowered Toho ability.
Technically do have one character with that power. Now, it's more devouring in a figurative sense, but Hina from Mountains of Faith is a misfortune goddess, but her special power is she can take misfortune away from people and make their lives better, so she goes around making it a point to try to make people's lives better by taking misfortune away.
Oh, and here I was expecting you were going to talk about Kana and her ability to devour the past.
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of supposed to be thematic because she's also supposed to be a teacher, so she's like teaching about the past while fully having the power to like annihilate it. And she's kind of like the misunderstood werewolf, so yeah, Hawk or...
But there already is a misunderstood werewolf. She's best friends with the mermaid.
No, that's true, actually. She's best friends with the mermaid and the Delahan, yes.
Yes, I am well aware about, Kagero.
Okay, everyone go to the comments right now. Who here is surprised that Jitaku knows about buff werewolf waifu mommy? Leave your comment now.
Oh no. Oh no, it's not
I'm
like
being
it's
kink
pathetic.
shamed. I'm being kink shamed right now, and then you all are responsible.
Leave a comment down below telling us how shocked you all are.
And I don't say anything about the fact that you're like, guys, what is it, Professor? Big, strong, whole stars, ladies.
I mean, interest of
Get that
fairness,
right.
there is a cowgirl Toho character. And interestingly enough, there's also a cowgirl Toho character as well, but that's, details.
I was about to say, I've seen, like, there was one that I want to say was one of Prince Shototaku's horses, which has a Stetson. And then there
Yep.
actually is, I want to say, an Ushi Oni.
Yep. I believe she's also from Most Dangerous Creature. What was it? Wily Creature and Dangerous something. I forget. Yeah, she's from the same game as your werewolf waifu. Yes.
Heh. And I sit
I
here
was about to
and
say,
you're mocking on fetishes.
All hail the eternal Eldritch Queen. May her reign last forever and ever.
Yeah, I just got a thing for redheads, and oh wait.
I was about to say, it's like, and then you're literally H.P. Lovecraft over here, Noodle. You're like, and then there I was, and I looked into the abyss, and the abyss, is like, I'm coming for you, Noodle, and I'm like, oh no.
This is literally the worst, he said, running at her with open arms.
I mean, no, not H.P. Lovecraft. Honestly, she's more like a fairy. All of her rules and contracts and going to court and being a smoking hot redhead.
Yes,
You got to, you
my
must.
life is
life's hard.
You are compelled in order to make pink space marines.
no. I compromised and painted pink Dark Eldar.
Yeah,
The
meanwhile
tangents
there's,
just
the Snek being like, Lord, I see what you've done for other people.
I want
And I
you
want
to do
that
the
for
same
me.
for me. I'm a small Snek. I'm a small danger noodle. Can't be too hard to find, a waifu who can bench press my car. I don't ask for much.
Oh dear.
Oh dear. And the tangents
Snek
of
died.
Snek died somehow.
He died after he started dating She-Hulk.
All I'm saying is I want my epitaph to just be worth it. And historians, like thousands of years from now, will just be like, what did he mean by that, though?
But anyways, the neutering and desensitization. And God damn it. The neutering and
No, I'm sorry. I thought it was funny. I thought it was funny how you were like, so, okay, enough of your silliness. We got to get back on track. It's a funny juxtaposition.
I actually thought the sentence was going to be, neutering the snake aside, and I was just like, oh, right in my feels.
I wasn't going that. I get us back on track onto.
Right. This has gotten entirely too silly. Let us get to the final thoughts, shall we, gentlemen?
Let us not go to Camelot.
Tis a city place. Yes, let us go to final thoughts for this episode. We'll just go in alphabetical order. So what do you think, Ditaku Man? Ditaku died somehow.
Perhaps he shall return to us, no longer Ditaku the Grey, but as Ditaku the White.
Oh, that is possible.
Honestly, I suspect on a certain level that it may also have been just familiarity. Kind of the entire, the fish does not, comprehend what water is because it literally is surrounded by it.
Right.
Situation. I don't think we brought it up, but I suspect that might be part of it. But I also think that, Noodle has the right of it too, and that, the deliberate, sanding off of the edge that the original stories had kind of has just led to just each successive iteration just being like, and we're going to sand off more, and we're going to sand off more, and sand off more until we just have nothing but a ball.
Yeah, basically. No, that checks out to me.
So yeah, that's my, thought.
All right, Noodle, you may proceed now.
And yeah, that really just was my final conclusion there. Very similar to Ditaku's there, that, yeah, it really just is that we're at the end of generations of that. People sanding the edges off of things. And yeah, we're just not allowed to cause any sort of disquiet to anybody ever. And those stories were very full of a lot of harsh truths and a lot of uncomfortable circumstances, and to teach some very hard lessons, and they've just kind of come out at the end of that.
Yeah, no, I think you guys, I think you guys have definitely hit the nail on the head on this one, and that's the thing. Maybe stories should make us at heart a little bit uncomfortable. Maybe there should be challenging ideas. Maybe people need to be exposed to challenging ideas a whole lot more than the Twitter generation it has encountered them. I don't know. What do you guys think at home? Go down, leave a comment under your comment about, Ditaku's werewolf waifu, and let us know what you think about the topic at large. Do you think we had the right idea, or do you have a different theory? We'd really love to hear it.
I was gonna say, I think they're gonna be like, yeah, I think we know that Ditaku likes werewolves. I think we get that.
Yeah. So
yes.
Thank you, gentlemen.
If you have future thoughts, please, I want to hear them. So
yeah, definitely. Yeah. I think there's more room for discussion and analysis here, beyond just what the three of us have postulated today. So thank you, gentlemen, for joining me for another riveting episode and many weird diatribes into strange territories.
My pleasure.
Yes.
Oh yeah, but I was okay, just making sure we're all still alive here. So
yep, we're all still alive.
Excellent. So
I have not been summoned by the Eldritch Queen yet.
Very well.
It's okay. I have a Phoenix down ready.
Good. So we will see you guys in the next one.
Bye-bye.